Florida State's freshmen are a major reason for the turnaround.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $5 bet down, and if it wins, you can get $300 in bonus bets on FanDuel.com. Today's show, we're going to talk about the opportunities for Florida State to really drive home that they are back as a program. We're going to talk about the opportunity to beat up on Kent State to get better, give credit to Tony White. We haven't talked about that enough. And also the opportunity with all of that together, it leads to something that I know every Florida State fan just cherishes, to leave the ACC. We're also going to talk about all the opportunities with Florida State going forward because of what they've done so far. We're going to talk about the PFF grades. Even for guys that are like third, fourth, fifth, and even a player that was sixth string going into last game who balled out, a sixth string player. That is the definition of a roster that is bought in, literally. But to begin the show, it's about the freshmen. Florida State's freshmen have balled out, and that's where we're going right now. Daryl Desir, Mandrell Desir, Chroma, Javen Boggs, like across the board, Florida State has seen a buy-in. Young guys in general, freshmen, redshirt freshmen, sophomores. It's not easy to do when you bring in transfers to keep those guys loaded up. Even walk-on. I'll talk about a walk-on here in a little bit. It's incredible. So I'm going to use a few different people as examples, and there are others. But again, this is just a few that I selected, and I wanted to focus a little bit more today on the defensive side, but I will also talk offense. Mandrell Desir, he was the number one ranked player on Pro Football Focus for Florida State's game against East Texas A&M. Again, number one player, Mandrell Desir, defensive lineman out of Miami Norwood. His brother played pretty well too, but here are his numbers per Pro Football Focus. 91.7 overall grade, 90.4 against the run. It's incredibly rare for a freshman to play well against the run like that. Tackling, 73.9, and pass rush, 66.9. Now I want you to think about something. With all of Florida State's juniors, seniors, and fifth-year seniors across the D-line, how hard do you think it is to really get young men to buy into playing hard in the heat? I mean, it's just insufferable in Tallahassee in August during fall camp. And we heard about the Desir twins constantly. Props to them, their family, the New Orleans program that they come from down in Miami, all across the board. I think they were the two guys that Tony went out of his way, and it was probably calculated to send a message. Hey, these guys are playing. Somebody asked him a question, Tony's first appearance during fall camp. I don't remember the exact question, and I apologize, but he mentioned Daryl Mandrell Desir. Why? Because they were playing hard and they were doing what they were told. They followed the mission. Their leader is Tony White. They go where he goes. And they play for their brothers. Those numbers are a great sign. Sticking with the D-line and freshman Tylen Lee out of the Pensacola area, 84 defensive grade, 79.1 run defense, 72.8 tackling, and 66.5 pass rush. Jaden Parrish, redshirt freshman from South Florida, a kid that I was super high on last year, redshirted, 79.1 defense, 80.7 run defense, 77.7 tackling, 61.3 coverage. He's going to end up being Florida State's middle linebacker either next year or the year after. Guarantee you're going to love this kid. He is a thumper. How about Shamar Arnaud in the back end, corner? Kid out of Carrollton, Georgia, one of the best programs in the United States. Had a chance to meet him a few times during the recruiting process. This is a kid that this is what it's supposed to look like at corner. Like his length is insane, great guy, and he played top-notch competition at Carrollton. 74.8 overall defensive grade, 70.1 run defense, tackling 74.2, coverage 70.8. He's already in the two deep as a true freshman. Even though Florida State had some experience, guys, he's come in and beat out players. Again, you're rewarded if you come in and you follow the leader and you do the right thing. Tony White sets the plan, you follow the plan, then you play. Straightforward. Now let's move to the offensive side and the obvious, easy answer. Chroma. He's a special player. He had the 43-yard touchdown, and overall he had a good day with running the ball. 5 carries, 37 yards, and 7.4 yards per tote. He's a really special player, but it's not just running. It's not just catching. He will block. He will carry out fakes. He is probably about as good a poster child for what, not just Florida State, but what any program wants in a guy that does what he's told. He was that way during the recruiting process. He was great with all of us that interviewed him, no matter where we were. He was awesome. And I saw Chroma at different locations. He was always the same person, didn't allow the accolades to get to him. And it shows with the way he performs for the eye test, as well as these PFF grades. His grades are 70.8 overall, 69.3 as a runner, and 80.6 as a receiver. For a true freshman, you'll take that every time. Love his upside. He's going to be a dude for Florida State for a very long time. And before I forget, just speaking of buy-in, how about this? I mentioned this in the open. When your 6th string running back is your number 1 player, PFF, it shows you what the buy-in is. Sam Singleton doesn't play much, but 4 carries, 82 yards, 20.5, a score, of course, the long touchdown. 95.5 is his total grade, and running, 92.8. Hats off to Sam Singleton. He's a lightning bolt. If that's a guy down your depth chart, it also shows you how much talent you have. And to that point, another extra shout out Zay Parks. I have no idea who the guy is, but he enrolled last year, I believe. 61 yards, 6.1 yards per tote, and a score. Florida State blocks for everybody. Every teammate gets a shot. That's the way it should be. And I love that. Florida State didn't do that all the time last year. Each unit, like mixing in and out of the lineup, that was not a guarantee. Gavin Sawchuk, by the way, whether it's Parks, whether it's Chroma, whether it's anybody else, having a guy like him come in from Oklahoma, a national recruit that played there, then comes to FSU, I think it will help Chroma and everybody else, Jalen Lucas and everybody too. That's a guy that played hard. I'm just going to give him a shout out while I'm thinking of it. 8 carries, 35 yards, 4.4, 2 scores, 75.8 PFF grade, and 76.4 PFF running grade. This is a really good running back room. I thought it was going to be good in fall camp. I talked about it. I didn't know it was going to be this deep. Again, Sam's like the 6th guy. I don't even have enough time to talk about everybody. Cam Davis, etc. Jalen Lucas, they're all good. Florida State's doing a heck of a job running the football. When we come back, we're going to talk more about Florida State's grades, start to dive into some of the grades for Kent State, because the Noles have to find a way to be bought in and ready between now and the end of the game against Kent State, all the way through, because afterwards you got the game on a Friday night at Virginia, and then the Canes come to Tallahassee. This is important. Florida State has to get better every single day, mental reps, physical reps, everything in practice before they go beat up on Kent State next weekend. This is important to talk about. That is also next here on Locked On Seminoles. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP. Who delivered? Powered by DoorDash. Just like you go out and win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. So let's break it down. For me, it was Deuce Robinson. Wide receiver for the Noles, had 160 yards and 2 scores early in the game. And he's a guy that also had a one-handed touchdown grab in a 50-50 ball situation. It doesn't get much better than that for the Florida State Seminoles. And finally, he's a guy that he just continues to be a great teammate, and he's a good player. You want to be around that kind of person. So just like Deuce delivered for Florida State, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order, stack it up all season, and you can save $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday, keep the streak alive, fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply, promo through November 18th. Today's show is also brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to the available Napa leather upholstery. Like our players, We sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I am Brian Smith, longtime recruiting analyst here for Locked On Seminoles. Come back and check us out as often as possible. And a reminder, we also have a mailbag that I'm going to be starting. For those of you that are on YouTube, we've got it going across the bottom of the screen. But if you want to send in a question, a comment, or anything else, just send it to fbscoutflorida@gmail.com. That's fbscoutflorida@gmail.com. There's no numbers, no dashes, nothing else. Just fbscoutflorida.com or at gmail.com. And we can talk about whatever you want. The Miami game, Florida State's quarterback play, the polls, leaving the ACC or anything else. We've got plenty of things to talk about. But to that point, let's talk a little bit about some PFF grades. It's pretty wild, some of the numbers that I see, good and bad on PFF, but they just report what they see and they put up their grades. Kent State's an opponent. It's going to be hard to be mentally dialed in, but they need to be, as I noted right before this segment. But when I show you these grades, it's going to show you why it's hard. The O-line blocking grades, and I watch PFF stats all the time. On X, I go to the site, etc., talk to people about it. These are some of the worst grades I can remember seeing. And their quarterbacks are bad. They got a true freshman and an upperclassman. Both are bad. They do have a good receiver, one running back they try to get the ball to. But overall, Florida State, the Desir twins, Darrell Jackson, Williams, McCray, all these guys should eat, if you know what I mean. And then the bevy of linebackers like Nicholson and on down the line, like Herring, they should all have a chance to make plays. If somebody has a weak stomach, you don't want to see these grades that I'm about to show you. That's how bad it is. But as the saying goes, here it is. And for those of you that are not on YouTube, that's okay. I'll make sure that I go over the main stuff here. But here they are. If you look at the pass blocking grades on the far right, you still see the orange and a lot of red. 50.3, 51.8, 65.5. That's a decent one. 33.3, 28.6, 2.7. Like they just don't pass protect very well. That's going to be a problem against the Noles and their size. But it gets worse with the run blocking grades. 48.8, 46.0, 39.8, it's 54.9. A lot of guys really struggling. So with all that being stated, I want to put it out there again. Focus is important. Stop the run and run the football. Those are the two things every team wants to do. But Florida State needs to be able to improve their run game. They were the greatest, honestly, even against Alabama, and they ran for 230, but they had explosives. The athletes that FSU has, they really did like the play calling was A+. They just kept Alabama off balance. And they did the same thing against East Texas A&M, but 5 of the first 10 runs for the Noles didn't even go for 5 yards against an inferior opponent. There are yards to be had, especially on the left side of the line. It's got to get better. Florida State needs Gunnar Hansen to get better. They need Richie Leonard to get better. They need Medway to get better. They need Pettibone to get better. And they also need Micah Pettis to get better. All of them need to get better, especially with inside zone and power blocking. With the bevy of backs, as we talked about earlier, that Florida State has, there is no reason they can't run for over 200 yards pretty much every game. The Noles are a dominant team up front if they want to be, and they continue to work at this. So that's my number one thing for the game against Kent State is the O-line to get better. But we also have to flip it to the other side of the coin, and that involves looking at their run defense. It is not very good. So when you look at that, not the run, I'm sorry, talk about their run offense, like they're blocking. Let's go here. Let's just go basic blocking, and then I'll just highlight the run. Kent State, with just that way it simplifies it. You can see this, the order. They don't have a single guy in the 70s. Not one. So your defense should be able to stuff them as well. Not one guy. It's always your focus, again, to make sure that you are putting yourself in advantageous third down situations. They don't have a guy in the 70s. They don't have a guy at 65. That's a problem. And if you look over here where it says BLK, that just blocks. Like, look at the reps. That's like snap count. Most of their players, I had to scroll down when I was doing my research. I'm like, where are the linemen at? Where are the linemen at? Oh, they're down here. A couple guys towards the bottom, 50.3, 51.8. This is not good. Another tackle, 33.3. They're bad. So you should be able to get them in bad situations. And then finally, just for the entertainment value, if you look at the passing situation, it's pretty rough. They've thrown a couple of deep balls. They got one receiver that's pretty good. But I just, the freshman, I'm not expecting him to do well. I'm sorry, Drew DeShields, you're a freshman out of Detroit. Excuse me. That's great. But against a very complicated Florida State pass defense, this is what I expect. Florida State should be able to turn them over. I talked about this on Wednesday's show. The turnovers are coming. And to be honest, this should be one of those games. It absolutely should. And they should be able to do it pretty early because you have nothing to lose if you're Kent State. You got one guy that can really run, that's got a couple of big catches. They're going to challenge the Noles probably pretty early, I would imagine. And why wouldn't you? You're not going to win the game anyway. You might as well have fun, try it out, and just see what you can do. Why not throw the ball deep? So I think there should be a limit and an expectation of 2 picks or turnover. They may not even get to the pick. They may just knock the ball loose. Maybe Darryl McCray, maybe it's, I don't know who it is, Williams, Daniel Lyons, whatever. Somebody's going to get a chance to knock the ball loose. But they need to have minimum 2 turnovers in this game because this is an atrocious team. We're going to learn a lot about whether or not they can beat Virginia, Miami, Wake Forest, Clemson, NC State, Florida, everybody else on the schedule, based on the effort and how they execute in critical moments where turnovers are available. And they're going to be available. This team is bad. If they cannot do it against this team, especially with an extra week to prepare, because this is a bye week, then how in the world are you going to do it when you got the Miami Hurricanes staring you in the face? They need to be able to do it now, and if you don't, then you don't deserve to even win the Virginia game, let alone the Miami game. That should be a top 10 matchup. It could even be a top 5 matchup. It's possible. That would be great, depending on how Florida State plays against Kent State and how the Noles end up playing against Virginia on the road. It's a Friday night game, by the way. So keep that in mind. I think Florida State is a team that probably will wipe them, but you got to come in and get focused, and you got to play hard from the outset. You can't just let it ride. So let's think about that for a second. Does Florida State come out just like they did against East Texas A&M and give them credit and just wipe them off the map, or do they ease into it? I want you to think about that, and we're going to talk about Tony White when we come back here in a moment, and leaving the ACC. 2 subjects I think that Florida State fans are going to like quite a bit. That is next here on Locked on Seminoles. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The NFL season is also here with college football as well. So FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if it wins, you can get $300 in bonus bets to use across the FanDuel app. Whether you want to use it on parlays, whether you want to talk about Josh Allen winning MVP, or it's Joe Burrow or anybody else, maybe it's just straight money lines you want to talk about, playing all kinds of things with halftime scores, over-unders. You can do it all on FanDuel. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. How about crediting Coach Tony White? Let's talk about the buy-in. Since I'll just tie this all together. At the beginning, I talked about the Desir twins. I talked about the ability for the defense and overall, Parrish, Arnaud, all these young guys to buy in addition to guys that are trying to get to the next level, like Darrell Jackson, obviously, Herring, obviously they've just got a plethora of guys. It's insane how many defensive players are playing at a high level, but it all starts with your leadership. I don't know what led Coach Mike Norvell going and getting Tony White. I have no idea. I don't know if there was a connection or who told him, but by golly, it worked out. 2 points. Number one, enjoy him while you can. He's not going to be in Tallahassee long. 1 or 2 years, he's going to get a head job, and he's earning it. He helped turn around Syracuse, and he completely helped turn around Nebraska's defense, and now he's doing the same at FSU. We see a pattern. He's earned it. And to that credit, for just this season, why not Tony White as National Defensive Assistant of the Year? I'm sure there's all kinds of awards for it. He better be in the running. Tony White should absolutely be in the running. Not only are the guys that I talked about earlier in the show, like Mandro Desir, Tywan Lee, Jaden Parrish, Shamar No, all the young players across the board are buying in. I cover college football across a wide scope. I also run the Portal podcast, and that's all the FBS teams, and I even cover a little G5 here and there. You don't see this very often. Trust me. Florida State fans are blessed to have him here for as long as he wants to stay. And who knows, maybe one day he's the Florida State head coach. Would not surprise me. He's earning my respect. The way the players are held accountable, doesn't care what you did last year, and the way he talks about wins and losses, it's the same approach each and every day, eyes on the prize. That's the way it should be. And that's how they get better. For those of you that are watching on YouTube, down at the bottom of the notes, it says how FSU gets better. Listening to Tony White would be a big part of that. He's proven it at multiple stops, and the turnaround this year is one of the most cataclysmic that I've ever seen in college athletics. I don't care if it's baseball, I don't care if it's gymnastics, football, basketball, any sport. They were 2-10 last year. And now I'm talking about the Noles possibly being a playoff team. That's almost absurd to even put those things in the same sentence. But the way they're playing better than some of the teams that were ranked preseason top 5, top 6. They certainly play better than Notre Dame or Clemson. I can assure you that. And in some ways, you can say they played better than Miami, even though they beat Notre Dame. They didn't play better than what Florida State did against Bama. They didn't. There's a lot of reasons to think that Tony White has a chance to be a National Assistant Coach of the Year and all kinds of different awards are going out. He should be on every one of those lists. He has earned it. And now I just want to bring this up. Florida State has added to its value. Let me say that again. Florida State has added to its value. The ACC made the deal and everything's tidy, at least for now. But here's very good news for Florida State fans about leaving the ACC. Florida State's winning again. It's as straightforward as you think. Look at the viewership. I'm not even going to say it. I want you to go look it up. See it with your own eyes. Look up the viewership for the Florida State versus Alabama game. And now Florida State's winning. If you don't think that's not viable for the SEC and the Big Ten and however it ends up, I'm not going to get into that discussion. But I guarantee you that the way Florida State is playing is going to help expedite leaving the Atlantic Coast Conference and for more money. I cannot think of a better way to end a Locked On Seminoles show than talking about Florida State leaving the ACC on their terms and doing so for more money. Why would other leagues not want Florida State with the way things are trending? Not just football either. Basketball is getting better. Baseball is good. They've got a really good athletic department at key sports. I think you're going to see a lot of interest over the next year as long as they can keep this staff together and they keep winning. There's no reason that Florida State won't leave sooner than later. They'll figure out a deal. I'll let that take care of itself. Listen to Gene at War Chant or something if you want insight on that. But I think there's plenty of opportunity. With Florida State winning now, the possibilities are really endless. By the way, that'll also help donations. Doe Campbell looks great, so the donations for that were well spent. But now they got to find a way to keep coaches and keep everything aligned. And then the conference stuff will take care of itself. I'm here for it because it'll be a blast. I don't know where they're going to go. I don't know how they're going to travel. I don't know how any of that's going to work, but I'm here for it. I think it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. So thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles a part of your day each and every day. And I truly appreciate it. This is a lot of fun, by the way, with them winning. And again, as a reminder, I'm going to start a mailbag, especially with me doing 2 shows a day. I'm going to put one up most days by noon. And they'll also be the one that regularly comes up early in the morning. For those of you on audio, it's 3 a.m. And for those of you on YouTube, it's 5 a.m. I'm going to shoot for noon for the shows during the second one. Sometimes it might be a little later based on whether or not there are press conferences. I might have to wait, but overall, it'll be around noon. So if you've got a question, a comment, something you want me to cover on Locked On Seminoles, that's cool. Just head over to FBScoutFlorida@gmail.com. Again, Florida is right before Gmail. Don't forget the Florida part. FBScoutFlorida@gmail.com. So I think that a lot of people probably are happy to talk more about the Noles right now. So let's have some fun with it. I put the @ symbol, by the way, for some reason in front of the F. I don't know why I did that on the screen, but FBScoutFlorida@gmail.com. We will see you again soon here on Locked On Seminoles. Everybody have a good one.